Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ugandan Podcast. I'm Rita Kanya, and for this particular episode, we're going to be talking about something that you might have heard of, or maybe you've seen it somewhere in the newspaper. There's a particular time, maybe after 5 years, that you hear a conversation about one particular thing, NDP. Maybe have a figure after it, so 1, 2, 3. But where we're going, 4. So when you hear about NDP, now just know we're talking about the National Development Plan. And here we're taking a look at focusing on Uganda as a country, the cornerstone of our national strategy when it comes to our socio-economic growth. Now you're wondering, wait, did I lose you somewhere? Let me get into a bit of the details so that I don't leave you anywhere as we get into this conversation. Now, NDPs are developed by the government to outline the vision, the objectives, the priority areas for investment and development over a 5-year period. Okay? Now, the first one that was ever developed and actually seen to the very end was in 2010-2011, going on to 2014-2015. This one focused on promoting economic growth and development. The second one that ran from 2015, end of 2015 into 2016 and into 2019-2020, aimed at enhancing productivity and improving service delivery. Now, when you hear of 2020, that is where right after that you might hear of COVID-19, the pandemic. Well, now the next one that is currently going on, which is the NDP III, which runs from 2020 to 2020, from 2020, 2021, then 2024, 2025. This one was particularly underway, emphasizing economic recovery, job creation, and the well-being of citizens, especially in light of the challenges posed by a COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, are we together? Now that's where we are, and it's right about nearing its end. And joining me to have a conversation about it, NDP III, and so much more, I am joined by none other than the board chair herself of the National Planning Authority, Professor Pamela Mbabazi. You're most welcome to the Ugandan Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Now I have to catch my breath for a minute here. Right. Because what I have talked about, I know of it because of the work that I do. But for so many, they hear of it, or even for some, by the way, it's not a crime if you're hearing for the first time. Right. So tell us about it.
Thank you. Fellow Ugandans, I'm very pleased that I can have a conversation with you today about Uganda's National Development Plan, because having a plan for a country is so fundamental. Mm-hmm. It spells out what the goal, the desire for a nation is, what the nation would like to achieve, and the sort of life and vision that we want to achieve as a country. Yes. And indeed, the National Planning Authority is tasked by the Constitution to really think and plan for this country. And we do this in collaboration, in partnership, in engagement with all stakeholders. And therefore, my being here to really account for where we've come from, where we are now, and where we want to go is ideal. And I want to thank the ministry and the entire team here for really inviting me to come and share this. So NDP I, NDP II, NDP III, as you rightly pointed out, has really tried to lay the foundations of our country in addressing the challenges we face as a country. And in particular, NDP III was really focused on improving household incomes and the quality of life of Ugandans. This, however, has been on the backdrop of the many challenges that have affected our country. You know very well, we were impacted by COVID.
Heavily impacted.
Very impacted by COVID. The resources we had set aside to really build roads, provide better health care, provide, access to, build bridges, set up factories, we had to divert. Yes. Because the country was in a lockdown. No sooner had that happened, we had floods, we had locusts, we had all kinds of challenges. And this meant that we couldn't achieve. Nevertheless, we were able to really, given the many NDPs, the national development plans that we've gone through, we've laid a fairly good foundation. So not all has been lost because we were able to set particular goals. We were able to really plan in achieving specific targets. some achievements have been made over time. I want to really remind us all that really peace, security, and macroeconomic stability have prevailed over the last couple of years.
Okay.
The Uganda we have today is not the Uganda we used to experience when some of you were not born in the 80s, early 90s. You cannot say that the security situation in this country is as it is today.
Yes.
And because of the peace we enjoy, we are able to undertake different activities that propel us to economy. Now, we have also dealt with connectivity. The roads, the road network that was there before, because of the plans we've been able to implement, have improved.
Yes.
You can move from Katuna to Malaba. You can move from Busia to Moroto. You can move from Moroto to Pakwach. Fairly, some still need further improvement. We still have a long way to go, but by and large, the road connectivity really has been improved. Our size of the economy has improved, has expanded. Our GDP has actually increased to 202.1 trillion in financial year 2024 from a palliative 64.8 trillion in 2011. That is no mean achievement. Our GDP per capita has also increased from 589 to the current 1,146. That is actually putting us in a middle income. These are no mean achievements. And I really want us as Ugandans to celebrate, but not so much because we still have a lot to go.
That's very
Electricity generation is another area that we have to point out. Ugandans are now living longer. Life expectancy is at 68.2 years. While we were, this is 2024, of course, in 2011, it was at 50.4. Access to education at all levels has also improved. We've had, of course, UPE and universal secondary education. At primary level, for instance, enrollment has jumped to 91%. In 2019, we were at 36. These are achievements because of proper planning. If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. So that's why every Ugandan needs to be interested, find a way of participating to set the target and goal they would like to see in terms of the Uganda we want. And I want to demonstrate really in our conversation today why it's so important for us. So in answer to your question, really, our NDP 1, 2, 3, and 4 have enabled us make these achievements because we've been able to set our priorities, find ways of raising the income, that sort of the revenue that we require to implement these interventions, to enable us really address the challenges we face as a country. Of course, there are many more pressing gaps that we need to address. And one of them is the fact that our economic growth is still very low. And that's why our president, His Excellency Kaguta Museveni, has challenged us in NDP IV. We have to target a double-digit growth.
Okay.
For all the last NDPs, we've really been shooting for single digit. And I think it's time, and we will do it if all Ugandans together, not just the public sector, the private sector, our development partners, every Ugandan, especially the youth.
The Rita and the Gens somewhere.
Exactly. Get involved in trying to see how we can really propel, progress in our economy.
Would you
go ahead.
Just as we stop just there for a minute, we've mentioned twice the need for the Ugandan to be a part of this whole planning situation, implementation of the NDPs, and where would start to bring the Ugandan in? Because when we talk about just NDP III that we're currently going through, one would say it's right on time, given what we went through as a country. The fact that we've been trying to see that maybe there should be more job creation. But where do you see the citizen through the implementation? How willing are they? What is the citizen participation like from the very first one all through to the third one that we're in right now?
Right. So, of course, in the first NDP, that was more on recovery of the economy. We've come from a very problematic situation where we've been, much of the country was recovering from war. And it was largely about dealing with establishing the socio-economic infrastructure, getting the roads built, getting the schools built, getting, the healthcare centers built. It was still reconstruction, if you may. And NDP II was largely consolidating. NDP III is when we tried to get into really growth, in beginning to start business, get UDB recapitalized, get private sector given support to set up businesses, get government to invest in areas where private sector has not. You saw UDC getting into areas like, whether in sugar corporation or generating electricity. I'm getting so hot, but that's climate change is affecting us as a country. But so in NDP III is where we get more active. We get the Ugandan population more active in engaging in production. And this is what we need to consolidate in NDP IV. And when I talk about Ugandans getting engaged in production, we are talking about, for instance, in agro-industrialization. We want more Ugandans, or we've seen Ugandans invest in, cultivating or rather dairy keeping.
Yes.
You see, I don't have the figures off cuff, but our dairy industry has expanded. If you look at our value chain for coffee, many people have gone into coffee production. You see banana growing. You see the 4-acre model that His Excellency talks about. Yes. Chicken coop rearing. We would like to see more Ugandans engaged in productive activities that earn them incomes that can transform their lives. On the part of the youth, I think we need to do more in mobilizing the youth to get engaged in productive activities. Yes, we have a very youthful population, and NDP IV is really targeting ensuring that we really provide productive employment to our youth. And the largest sector we have is agriculture. And I want to really encourage our youth to be innovative. We cannot transform our country unless we really innovatively engage in production, productivity, and value addition. And NDP IV is encouraging us to think out of the box. Yes. ICT is here. We're here, taking on the talking on the podcast right now. We're getting onto this space to see that we relate to the young people.
Meet them at their point.
At their point.
In their comfort zones.
They need to think of how can they make, we are ready as NPA to really have a conversation around how can we make agriculture attractive for the youth.
Now, just continue the conversation from where you mentioned the youth and how innovative they are, or they need to be, given our biggest population here within Uganda is the youth. On a scale of 1 to 10, how innovative have you seen the Ugandan youth have become?
I believe the youth are our future, and I want personally to believe, and I strongly feel that they do and are able to innovate at a scale of perhaps 5 at the moment.
Where's the other 5 lacking?
I think that drive, that commitment, that thirst to really excel and be persistent and not want to make quick successes. I think one thing, and that could be me, and I'm stand to be corrected. Many of our youth, because I see I've got 2 children who are still youth, I see their desire to really quickly get money and quickly do things and quickly. It takes time, and especially innovation. If you want to be excellent in anything, you need to take time to study the issue. I'll give you an example. In agriculture, you want to really become a commercial farmer. You're not going to buy 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 cows here, put a paddock here, get somebody and start thinking within a month or two you're starting milking. It's going to take time. And that brings me to my conversation around how our youth can find agriculture lucrative. I believe many, and I'm not saying all of the youth, but many have a relative, family, extended friend that have pieces of land, that have some economic activity on the land, that is based on the land. I would encourage that we all take interest into something agriculture related, because agriculture is the next gold. And as a country, that's our basis. And we're saying in the NDP IV that we want to increase production, productivity, and value addition around that chain. As a youth in Uganda today, you can earn a really good living from the land of your relative, of your parents, of your friend, even as youth together. There are many innovative how should I term it? Innovative mechanisms that government has put in place. We have Myoga, we have PDM, we have microfinance, all aimed at encouraging the youth to organize themselves and find ways in which to propel productivity on the ground. It's not going to be easy, but I think the will is there on the part of government in different spaces, in private sector foundation, Ministry of Gender, and Ministry of Finance. In most of the ministries, all ministries, departments, and agencies have been tasked to really find programs and initiatives that target the youth. Because as a country, we don't have the luxury at all to really think of any innovation without paying due emphasis on the youth.
Yes.
They are above 50%. And NDP IV is stressing this, that the anchor of NDP IV is really about employment creation, targeting the youth. Okay. And I'm appealing really here that even in agriculture, if you want to start chicken coop rearing, take time to study. Visit some people, or at the village level. Even here in Kampala, we have many success stories. Take time to first go and have a visit. Yes. Talk to people. In the Ministry of Agriculture, we have many experts, many community workers, extension workers that have the expertise. Don't gamble. Get in with the know-how and find out what government is doing to promote that particular vocation, and get in when you have done some bit of study and research, and do it right. Yes. Because when you do it right, you can. In terms of the innovation, again, it depends on the value chain. I'll give an example of coffee. Coffee, there are many new varieties that are coming on board. If you want to venture into coffee, take time to understand which new variety produces the most beans and aim for that. Again, for you to really ensure that ensure that plot of yours produces more coffee, you need to fertilize, you need to irrigate, you need to plant the coffee stem in a particular way. Yes. So as a youth, it's important that they take time to study, to understand. There are many initiatives in government along different value chains. And in our NDP IV, we're stressing the key priority commodities that government is going to be promoting. I think it would do well for the youth to also associate themselves with those commodities that government is deliberately going to promote. Coffee is one of them, tea, but these are, again, traditional, cash crops, but we have other food crops. We have beans, we have matoke, we have bananas, and then the new variety crops of Hasa avocado. We have the legumes as well. We have the seed, simsim and all the oil seeds that are being promoted. So the point I want to stress really is that as the youth, let us take interest to see how we can be part and parcel of the value chains in agriculture. In terms of ICT, I think this is where the youth could actually be more innovative. Many new approaches to farming are coming to table. You have precision agriculture, where you're able to actually use digital solutions to understand the quality of your soil. So it's the youth that should take this to the next level. You cannot be growing coffee the way your grandfathers grew coffee. Before you grow coffee on your small piece of plot, there are free digital solutions today where you can actually assess the quality of your soil. Is it conducive for coffee? Don't plant coffee if it's not. And if you do, those digital solutions tell you the kind of fertilizer you require to put in that particular soil to be able to get productive. So these are the innovations that we want our youth to be interested in. Take interest. Government is putting resources in promoting industrial parks, but also knowledge centers. Makerere University has innovation center. Universities like Mbarara University, Busitema University, Gulu University are setting up innovation centers for the youth that are able to get to university. Join your colleagues. If you're studying medicine, take interest to get connected to colleagues in agriculture, in energy, and work together to see what solution you'll be able to do when you graduate. I think what COVID has taught not just Uganda, but the entire world, is that we need to collaborate. We need to be together. The Western powers, of course, demonstrated that they are at a different tangent. But as countries of the South, and particularly a country like Uganda, we need each other, and the youth need each other. If you're studying a particular discipline, you need to collaborate to see how we address our challenges.
And I think as you talk about collaboration, one thing with the National Planning Authority, collaboration has to do with not just the government, not just the citizen, but then there's also CSOs, there's the private sector. All of that ties into one another. So as much as you're asking for them to make the research, as they like to call it, the collaboration, how do you then have all these other entities, sectors coming together on NDP IV?
Absolutely. Very good question, because indeed the development of our country cannot only be propelled and achieved by government. We need every stakeholder, every friend of Uganda to be a part of this process of development. While government will have or is focused on key priority areas, the private sector has to drive growth. The youth have to get in also and engage. Development partners have to be a part of this. We all need to collaborate to ensure that we get to the Uganda we want. And indeed, as NPA, we try our best to ensure that in identifying the challenges facing Uganda, and I want to sort of highlight a few, and these will point us to where the priority of NDP IV is. We still have several challenges affecting our country. I did talk at the beginning of our conversation that we've come from far. Our roads have improved, education has improved, but we still are facing some gaps, and some the distortions in our factors of production, like land. We have so many land conflicts.
Too many. That
are preventing progress in that area. We have distortions in labor. Our labor prices are very low. If you look, for instance, at the factories, we've had so many factories commissioned. You would have expected that because we have so many factories, we have so many people employed, and therefore paid very well, and therefore having a better life. It's not happening because there is a distortion in the labor prices. The wages given in these factories are very low, and we need to address that as a country. We need to give affordable wages, living wages for people to live the life that we are talking about. Capital, there are distortions in our capital space. The biggest challenge for a private sector in Uganda is the high cost of capital. You go to a bank and you borrow a loan at very high interest, and you continuously all your life have to work to pay back that loan. And that's why private sector in this country is not growing. You see, much of the business is mainly done by foreign companies. The reason being the cost of capital is too high. And this, as a country, we have to address. This is something, as a country and as NDP and NPA, we are thinking round the clock to see how to bring the cost of capital. So the distortions in land, the distortions in labor, the distortions in capital are some of the elements we're trying to address in NDP IV. Our land market is very speculative. You come here, they'll tell you a small piece of land, 500 million shillings. Hello, this tiny little piece. It just can't, it shouldn't be. We have the limited value addition as well is a challenge. From 1962, when we got independence, the coffee that my grandfather was exporting and not exporting really, selling for export is still the same coffee. No other country globally has had that sort of experience. We need to change that. We need to move to value addition. And that's what His Excellency has been preaching and preaching. We cannot be saying we are independent and still selling the same coffee that we have been from years back. And that's what NDP IV is actually also targeting, value addition. We want every Ugandan to sing, to really talk, to really feel that they are adding value. We want to challenge even on the village now with PDM. We would like to get down to the village and mobilize. I'm doing the same in my village. I'm saying, guys, we are growing potatoes. We cannot be selling plain potatoes. Let's think about a potato plant and get to start, thinking big. I would love to see the youth take that energy up and see, okay, we're going to collect all these eggs. We're going to be innovative. What comes out of eggs? Let us think about what we can get out of eggs and sell, but add value. And equally across all the different commodities. So value addition, or rather limited value addition, is a challenge that we still have to address as a country. The share of population in subsistence. Many of our households across the country are still producing from hand to mouth. They are not producing enough for sale. We need to get all our households across the country. Everybody, every household should really sit down and say, okay, what am I going to produce to sell? That sort of thinking has not happened deeply in every household, in every home. And I would love our youth to take this mantle. Challenge your parents and say, Dad, Mom, what are we producing to sell? And when that question happens at the family level, that is a good thing. They'll start asking and seeing the neighbor, and that energy has to start brewing. And that's what we're trying to do in NDP IV, to put interventions by government that are going to propel families across Uganda to begin thinking on producing for the market.
Is there any message on that, just that area that you're speaking to the Ugandan who's watching or listening to this podcast? What participation would you like to see from them in the upcoming NDP IV?
So I would like because we are consulting. We've done a lot of deep thinking. We've taken stock of all the NDP IIIs. I mean, all the 3 NDPs that were, and the third that is going to end now, to see what has worked, what hasn't worked. We've read all the books, seriously read much of what has worked and what hasn't worked. We've looked at the different countries that we can relate to on what they are doing in terms of trying to transform their countries. We've listened, consulted president, our cabinet ministers, parliamentarians. The conversations are still ongoing, but we are now reaching out to the general public and the youth to really tell us, this is what we have seen as the challenge facing Uganda. And these are some that I've highlighted here. Distortions in land, labor, capital. We have limited value addition. We have a larger population not in the market economy if we want to transform. So I would love that the general public really affirm to us, verify that these are the challenges that this country is facing and that we need to prioritize as government. We're not going to say we're going to address all the problems, but at least from a planning perspective, we are seeing these are what we need to address as a country to be able to move. We have to really handle the distortions in land. Land is very speculative. The pricing is so problematic. I'll give you an example. Let me try to explain that point further. We have to build the standard gauge railway, right?
Yes.
No, we are not going to develop as a country until we get that SGR in place. All countries the world over have only been able to transform by being able to transport goods and services in a quick, efficient, and affordable manner. You cannot do that on the roads. They wear and tear very quickly. So you need a high-speed railway. All countries have done that. We can do it, and we can do it faster. Why? We have iron ore deposits lying down in Muko, which God gave us. We cannot easily do it if the land distortions continue, where now that every Ugandan knows where it's passing, they're raising the price. A small piece of land is going to cost 1 billion. You can't do that, right?
Yes.
So we have to find a way of addressing those distortions to be able to move. Equally for the tax. So in answer to your question, you asked me what, as Ugandans, do they need to do regarding this? Let us get the diagnosis of the problem right. Is this exactly what every Ugandan feels is the challenge? Do they go to borrow money and find it cheap? Have we gotten it wrong? I don't think so. So we want all of us to agree. The biggest challenge we are facing as a country is the distortion in land, the distortions in labor. As long as our labor are not paid the right price, we are not going to move. If at the end of the day, they give you a salary and you hardly can survive, how are we going to transform? So as a country, we need to address this. So, and then you come onto capital as well. We need to address that. If our businesses cannot go anywhere and borrow money to be able to start a business to talk home about, and we have a local content and our business, people can grow and drive the economy. Trust me, no business person is going to come from, and with all due respect, the US, the Canada, and develop our country. It has to be Ugandan businesses. Can they develop with this high cost of capital? I don't think so. Do we need to address it? I think very urgently. So I would love us as Ugandans to understand what our problem is and together be willing. So when we say, listen, we have put money in PDM for the average household, really left out, to go and borrow money to produce. Don't go and borrow and buy a mattress or go and borrow and marry another man or woman, sorry. And go and borrow, it's important that we all talk the same language. When His Excellency and all our leaders go out in the constituencies, in the villages and say, this is what government has tried to do, add on and commit and do something to earn an income at the household level. Because it is when we mobilize all households together and no one is left behind that we can then transform as a country. The moment we have distortions where a section of the population is moving while the other is moving, or one affluent and the other pulling down, we can't move. So really, those are some of the persistent gaps. The private sector still being very weak and largely informal. We must change this. Youth unemployment remains very high, and we have to really deliberately, as government and as a community and as a country, address the problem of youth unemployment. So what is the focus of NDP IV then? One is the full monetization of the economy. So we cannot, and we are focused on making sure that everybody joins the market economy. That is one of the anchors of NDP IV. And this, we are also focused on ensuring that we increase productivity and value addition. And I talked this using the vehicles of PDM and Yoga. We want to ensure that really at the grassroots level, we promote production. So if each household can really apportion a piece of land. I was talking to Samarid in Kavale, and the per capita land holding is one of the smallest countrywide, less than 3%. I think less than 0.2 to 0.3 of an acre. An average household. It's the most densely populated area, one of the most in the country. So I was visiting my small village and talking to my neighbors and telling them, they were saying and expressing to me how they have land. It's all cultivated. I said, you can actually go as digging in the boundary. You can actually, there is a lot of space in the boundary if you put, and I did measure for my neighbor, and we went all around his property, and he could actually put up 20 Hasavacado trees just in the boundary. The kind of innovation. That's a just slight example of what every household should do. We would like them to see, okay, what part of your land are you putting under cultivation for a product you will sell, so that you deliberately look after that product for sale and you put a science into it. We want, it's going to take time, but we want every household to think about that. So one of the key focus areas is really production, productivity, and value addition. That is something we have anchored in NDP IV. Beyond what we did in NDP III, we are saying we want to increase productivity. So we want to encourage households to really not just at the PDM level, but those that are going into commercial farming that have some bit more land, to really start using fertilizer, irrigation. And this is why His Excellency, and one of the priority projects in NDP IV, is solar-powered irrigation systems. Government is going to support farmers to get into irrigation so that we get into commercial farming. Infrastructure to support value addition is one of the anchors of NDP IV. Whereas we've been going to improve road network around the country before in NDP III, this time round we want to be deliberate and intentional. So it's not just a road anywhere. It's going to be an intentional road. A road taking us to where coffee is being collected. A road where oil is being I left a discussion at NPA now with the CEO, the Chief Financial Officer, I think, Chief of UNOC. We were having conversations around the fast oil and what is happening around our oil. So in terms of infrastructure development, we are really deliberately this time ensuring that the road network that is being constructed, that is being completed, will be directly aimed at productive areas, not because I know somebody or because I'm an MP here. No, that is not going to happen in NDP IV. We want to be very deliberate and working with all stakeholders. And we want even the youth to hold us accountable and say, you know, where is this road going? What is it going to evacuate? It's supposed to be a productive road. There will be some security roads to help us ensure that in areas like Karamoja, security is maintained and parts, but and tourism roads. But they are roads that really are going to improve our productive potentials. We also want, and that's another anchor of NDP IV, a knowledge-driven.
Yes.
That's why I told you before that whereas, we don't have the luxury anymore of just spreading like seeds anyhow. No,
whatever grows.
There is not at all. We have solutions on your iPhone to tell you, is this land? But even the agriculture extension workers now are being empowered to really help our farmers and show them. And we are doing what they call agriculture. We're trying to, I'm trying to remember the word, to apportion land in a manner that it demonstrates where a particular commodity grows well. So area commodity, it skipped my head.
If we were to say, we look at, say, ginger, or if we're to look at, Fort Portal, let's look at Fort Portal.
Yes.
We know that
precisely
is perfect.
Yeah, so we are able, the Ministry of Agriculture is this time round deliberately going to guide in identifying specific areas and regions where particular crops can grow
and thrive. Okay.
So that we don't do anything anyhow. Of course, it can't be a monocrop. There will be 1 or 2 or 3 crops designated for a particular area so that we go in deliberately and grow massively a particular commodity and commercialize. And this, we believe, will propel us. So knowledge economy driven by science and technology is another anchor for NDP IV. We also, of course, want to reduce the cost of credit. We are very, very deliberate about ensuring that UDB is further capitalized and ensuring that UDC is also capitalized. But we are having deep conversations in the next 5 years to look at the potential. And we finished the study of having a Ugandan bank.
Okay.
Fully fledged bank. This is still in the thought process, but I'm saying it out.
Yeah, we will be back
we
here.
We are dipping. Yes.
5 years to have that.
But we have done a study that has shown as a country we need an own bank. And His Excellency in establishing the PDM that has now pretty much taken over 1.2 trillion. If you see this again, that's going to be 2.4 trillion. Within 5 years, that's a bank.
That is a bank.
That is a bank. And we are really working towards ensuring that in the next 5 years, the cost of credit comes down because we need this for our private sector to thrive and move. Yes. Increased revenue mobilization is another area, but also prioritizing culture. And this is where the youth need to come in.
Yes.
Culture and creatives. We think that as a country, we've been blessed. We have very creative young people.
We do.
We can capitalize on using our culture and market that to really, and I'd encourage our youth, please be more creative, get into the creatives and let us, build our country. Investment in Greater Kampala Metropolitan. You know, when you visit any home, you sit in the sitting room. It's normally the first impression that gives you, is this a good home? Is this a clean home? Now, when you come to our Greater Kampala,
is it?
That is what we're trying to do.
Urbanization.
Yes, smart cities. Greater Kampala Metropolitan Authority area is what we want to focus on. It's one of the national priority projects.
What do you envision?
We want to get Kampala to be a smart city.
Okay.
to have real well-designated multimodal transport. I'm looking at Kampala with a very efficient bus system that is all well lit, with green spaces, with affordable housing where you can have nice affordable flats that you can stay in, that you have very clean, a clean city that has pedestrian places. This is the Kampala that I see and that we are planning for in NDP IV, and that we want youth to be telling us, this is the Kampala we want. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to work with government, with every stakeholder to get to the Kampala we want. So these are all ideas that we're putting in place to see that we create the smart city.
Okay, just to put you on hold there.
Yeah.
You have mentioned accountability twice.
Yeah.
Through it all.
Yeah.
And where do the citizens come in and hold the authority accountable and say, maybe over the years in the first, the second, the third, now the fourth that we're getting into as we wrap up the third, there's some key areas that maybe are being carried into the next, and one may have a hesitation to say, but we have tried this before and we didn't see any results. And to hold you accountable as a planning authority on what went wrong and where perhaps they have done their part, but they don't see things changing.
Yes, I think this is a conversation that we need to all have. Personally, I think we haven't had enough dialogues. I don't think we have had enough spaces in engaging our youth. We have had some, but we need to do more. I think we need to be more deliberate, and I've talked to my team at NPA that we need to invite different representatives and also go out in the field and create those spaces and opportunities to engage with the youth who are organized, because I think we also need to help them organize, because they are not homogeneous.
Yes.
We have different categories of youths, and we need to work and ensure that we reach out in whatever spaces. It could be through schools, it could be through churches, it could be through roundtable discussions at the district. There are many ways in which we can reach out. I think it should be the responsibility of everyone in government to create those spaces of engagement, even a podcast or a radio program or a TV program or a youth engagement initiative. I remember before, when I was at university in my career, you probably weren't born yet, we had evening discussions around challenges affecting our country. I don't think they're there anymore. So we need to cultivate these spaces again.
Yes.
And I think every Ugandan in a position of authority or influence ought to take it upon themselves, because we don't have the luxury of ignoring the voices of the youth and allowing them to challenge us.
Yes.
And allowing them to speak their mind. And I have at NPA scheduled in our consultations with different stakeholders to have a series of youth engagements. I went to see our Honorable Minister of Youth, Honorable Baram, not so long ago, and he was able to bring together quite a number of youth, and we had an engagement about what priority areas need to be reflected. And I'm yet to go back to him, because we captured everything, and now I want to go back to him and say, did we get it right?
Yes.
And this conversation should not be a one-off.
No.
We need to agree on a series, but we need the youth to tell us as well what they think and how they think they can be. And I want to challenge really colleagues in government to find ways in which we can create spaces for engagement. We have had some spaces, they are not enough. We need to do much more.
Do you think that the youth are speaking on social media? And do you think they're using that tool quite right? Where do you find the hesitation?
I actually personally think the youth are speaking. I don't think we're listening enough.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think we don't want to listen. It's just that the different generations, I see myself, I like dealing on social media, but I only get there on a Saturday, like on late at night, and I don't spend time. And this is something, it's a space of engagement.
Yes.
We must deliberately, even as NPA, have a policy space of engaging the youth on social media, on radio, on TV. It's not something we've done. It's not something we don't want to do. We want to do it, but we are learning. We want to learn how to do it. We haven't put in much thought. But after this conversation, I think I'm going to go back with my brilliant communication manager and see what we do.
Okay.
And I think we need to help each other, because I think the ministry here has gone way ahead. I think you could do more in supporting all of us across government to have such spaces and reach out for the youth. I would really want to come back here with more youth.
We'll be glad to have you back here with more youth.
And have an honest conversation about planning for my country, planning for our country. Have we got their concerns right?
Yes.
Have we created enough interventions to address those concerns? And if not, what do we need to do? I would love those conversations and to continue, so that every month, I come back and say, okay, I tried. Maybe I failed here, so this is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
So this has to be a two-way thing, and to learn by doing, by the way.
I think we can start here, right here on the podcast. If
I am ready to come back.
We'll start here, and as we continue the conversation, we know that if there's something you'd like to say from what has been shared at this point, if it has something to do with NDP IV, and you'd like to say something, you can go to the handles of the authority say something right there and continue the conversation.
Tell me.
For now, we're going to take a short break away from the planning of NDP IV. Let's now get to know you as the board chair. Let's see how Ugandan you are. This is part of the podcast where we get to know how Ugandan you are, whether it's to do with food, whether it's to do with music. What's that one thing you'd carry with you if they told you were not coming back to Uganda for maybe 6 years?
Wow.
Yes, that one thing you'd carry. And why? That is Ugandan.
I would have to take some bit of food that can stay those 6 years. So
clearly, that would be some extra weight at the airport, but what would you carry?
Because Ugandan food is amazing. It is, for me, you won't find the taste of Ugandan food anywhere. Actually, it puzzles me. Now, that's a tip of an innovation that our youth can do. We don't have that many Ugandan restaurants all over, maybe that's something they could innovate around. But seriously speaking, I think some food, maybe a dried food or something. One
that comes off.
I love bushera.
Okay, so millet, is it?
Yes, the millet bushera.
Okay.
Yes.
So you take some millet flour.
Yes.
Now we know.
I would go with that one.
Great. Now, when it comes to a food that you would eat day in, day out for a week, and you would have no complaint. Back home here.
Matoke.
But matoke barely has any taste.
I love it.
What do you like to have it with?
I love it with chicken soup.
Chicken stew?
Chicken stew.
Okay.
I love chicken.
Enough. I'm trying to see,
Yeah, I love matoke.
Okay, now we know bushera, now we know matoke and some chicken stew.
Yeah.
Music-wise, say which region within the country do you think has some really good music?
Oh, my word. So, it's a dance that I like.
Which one is that?
It is, I saw it recently. I think it's the Karamojong. I love the way they dance. I saw it recently.
Yeah.
And it was like a courtship dance, I think it was.
Oh, I think is it Tarakara? Is it Tarakara?
That's the one.
Okay.
That is the one.
I'm not doing so bad. Okay. And
that
because the
one.
dance is sort of moving to a beat.
I love that one. Okay. I told myself, I must learn that dance before I die. So it's on my bucket list.
Okay. So
I have to learn
we'll come back to you. Maybe in a year or two, we should ask you.
No, I will have learned. Trust me. Because I'm going to Karamoja, I think, in about a week or so. That is on my bucket list. I must learn how to dance. That dance. I loved it.
When I meet you anywhere else, a year from now, I'll have to ask you, How did it go? Are you well on this one?
I am going to. Actually, I can vouch that, I can promise that when I come back, I'm going to dance that.
Now we will all hold you accountable.
I am going to try to dance it.
And we look forward to having you back on the Ugandan podcast.
No, I'm looking forward. By God's grace.
Okay, so as we wrap up the conversation,
yes, please.
We would like to just have your last words for any Ugandan who will be watching this in 2025.
Right.
And we're getting into the fourth NDP.
Fourth NDP.
Where would you want the attention to be? What do you want them to have at the back of their minds as we go through the next 5 years?
Right. Yeah. No, thank you. I'm really so glad that we had this conversation. I think for me, the major message I want to give out to Ugandans, to our youth, is that we need to have a stronger sense of love for our country and be willing to work hard to achieve the Uganda we want. Nobody from out of Uganda, from you name whatever country, is going to change our country for us. It's us pulling up our sleeves and saying we're going to work very committedly to transform this country into the Uganda we want. We've been blessed to have a president that wants the best for this country, went out, fought so hard to really ensure that we have peace. Let us work hard because of the fundamentals that they've put in place for us. We have roads, basic roads. We have a fair education. We have a fair healthcare system. We have some reasonable amount of space to start a business and move. Let every Ugandan really get involved, get in. I want to really appeal to all of us to hold each other accountable. Let us hold each other accountable. If we are committed, determined, very keen to do what we say we do, to drive our country forward, we can do it by God's grace. Yes, I think that if we can commit as Ugandans, I want to appeal and say it again, collaboration, commitment, partnership, holding each other accountable and ensuring that we really struggle to get to the Uganda we want, we can do it.
Yes,
I thank you and God bless you.
Bless you too. Thank you so much for joining us on the Ugandan podcast. Once again, Professor Pamela Mbabazi, the board chair of the National Planning Authority. It has been a great conversation.
Thank you.
And I think now more than ever, we know what role we can play and what direction as a country we're going forward in and where we come in to play that role. So thank you once again. And to each and every one of you that has watched or listened, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, keep it Ugandan on the Ugandan Podcast.